Good morning. It is 7:30 Central Time in the morning. Thank you for listening. I have a question for you today. Are you a good listener? I watched a funny little clip the other day of this kid who's obviously he's trying to be corrected by someone. I think it's his mom. But he goes on and on and on. He says, "Linda, listen, 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 Linda, Linda, listen, Linda, listen." He just goes on and on. She's trying to adjust something, and he just keeps going on. Listen, Linda, listen, listen, Linda. It is one of the funniest things. But we've all been there where we're trying to talk to someone and they're just not listening. I have found over the years that listening is one of the greatest skills you can develop. So I ask you again, are you a good listener? And the answer is probably not. You have to really be intentional and work hard every day to hone the skills of being a great listener. Now let me give you some things that if you have this working in your life, you're going to be not a very good listener. And one of those is you have no patience. If you are not a patient person, you will not be a great listener because listening means you have to slow down enough and be patient enough to hear what's actually being said. And one of the things I know about our society, and America specifically, is that we're terrible listeners because we're so impatient. And part of the reason you can know you're impatient is how many times you interrupt someone. Now, I know we don't mean this, at least outwardly. We may mean it inwardly, but we don't mean it outwardly because this would really hurt if we were to say it openly. But when we interrupt someone, what we're actually saying is, would you please shut up so I can tell you what I think is important or how brilliant I am about that particular subject? So we wouldn't say that, but that's what we actually mean. So if you're an impatient person, you're not going to be a great listener. If you're someone who interrupts all the time, you are not a great listener. If you're someone who's thinking about something else, or maybe even how you're going to answer them, if you're thinking about something else besides what they are saying, you are not a good listener. You are divisioned. You're divided because someone is trying to say something, but you're actually trying to think about something else. You're divided in your attention, and that makes you a not great listener. So, um, I'll tell you another thing that you can judge whether you're a great listener by or not. Are you always looking somewhere else when someone is talking to you? Are you looking at your watch? If you know me, if I don't wear a watch anymore, even though I love the aesthetics of a watch. I think a watch looks beautiful on someone's arm, especially if it's again, a nice looking watch. But I don't wear a watch because what I found is when I looked at it, even if I didn't mean to imply this, what the other person heard was, I'm in a hurry, I don't have time for you. Now, that may actually be true, but I don't want people to feel like I do not have time for them. And unfortunately, I have been accused of, and I think there's some truth to it. I had to make some adjustments, that someone was talking to me and I looked off. Now, I don't know why I looked off. Maybe something tragic was happening. Maybe something major was happening. Maybe somebody just caught my attention because they were acting silly. But that person left the church saying, Pastor Lee doesn't care about me. Man, that hurt my heart because I care about everyone. But I left the impression in this person's mind that I didn't care about them. And I have found when I'm talking to people, like I'm having to teach a whole nother generation not to bring their phone when I take them to lunch, because that phone will go off and they will look at it, and sometimes they even answer it. Mostly they just look at it and set it down. But the truth of the matter is, if I wanted that person, whoever it was that called, to be a part of our conversation, I would have invited them. But I struggle with, even if they don't bring their phone now, almost every place you go has a TV or several TVs. And what I'm finding is people, if they're not looking at their phone or their watch, they're looking at the TV. And they're divided. They're divided. They have a division. Their attention is here and to me, and they're trying to look at both at the same time and not be impolite, but it's really impolite. And so I'm trying to teach a whole generation how to look a person in the eyes and carry on a conversation between you and that person, to be fully engaged in the conversation. Now, you may not have thought about this, but you know intrinsically, you know from the inside out, that listening is more than just hearing the words somebody is saying. Now, I've done this test all over the world, and it works everywhere, all the time, for everyone. I will have people pair up. Generally, there's couples there, husband and wives, there's a boyfriend and girlfriend. But if not, they just pair up, and I will tell one person, you tell a story, and I'll tell the other person, you do everything you can to let that person know you're listening, without any training, without any teaching, without any instructions. The first thing that person does is look that individual in the eye and almost always lean in. They get closer. And they will nod their head and they will make comments. Wow, that they're doing what we should do all the time. But see, the problem is they're only doing it because I made them be intentional. And that's the thing. If you're not intentional, you will be divided. Being a great listener means you are fully engaged in what that person is saying, not what you're going to say back, not what you did this weekend, not all these different things that we do, but to pay attention to what that individual is saying at the moment, to lean in, to listen well, so that you know what you're actually hearing. Now, if you were in my office and you were talking and I said to you, go ahead, I'm listening, and you start telling a story, and I reach in my pocket and pull up my wallet and I start looking and I start, yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, uh, yeah, I'm listening. Go ahead. It's a great story. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm listening. How long would you keep telling the story? It wouldn't, you might go on for a few minutes, but probably not. But you would be offended very, very quickly. Why? I told you I'm listening, because you know in your heart of hearts that listening means I should be paying greater attention. I need to be fully engaged in this conversation. I can't be divided. So even without training, teaching, instruction, we know that being a great listener is more than just hearing what's being said. Have you ever been in a conversation with a husband and wife that got a little kid, and the little kid's come up, he's got daddy's pants. Daddy, 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 daddy. And that that father's trying to carry on a conversation with you, and the boy's relentless. Daddy, it is not that that man doesn't hear his son. He's not giving it the attention it deserves. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, depending on how important the conversation is. You know, it would be nice for him to look at his son and say, son, just wait a minute. or what do you have to say, and then answer the question, and then we could have a conversation. But see, the truth of the matter is, beloved, God has created you and I in such a way that we can block out stimuli. We can block out certain things that are going on all around us so that we can focus in on what's happening right in front of us. For instance, many of you are listening to me right now, but in the background there may be music, there may be a fan, there may be the kids. You can hear it, but you're not really paying attention to it. You're hearing the sound, but it's not got your full attention. That's how most of us listen on everything. It's not just shutting out the AC unit or the heating unit or the kids. We literally tune people out. And we don't listen well at all. In James 1:19, the scripture says, "Let every one of us be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger." Now, I think that's in order of how things go. That if we'd be better listeners, we wouldn't talk so much. And if we listened better and didn't talk so much, we wouldn't get angry quite so fast. So whether that's the order things actually go or not, the truth of what that scripture says is still true. We should all be swift, ready, in a moment's notice to hear, to listen. I tell people God gave us two ears and one mouth for a reason. Not so we could talk twice as much, but so that we would listen better. You know, if we would listen to what others are saying, truly listen to what others are saying, and have great communication, we could solve a whole lot of problems. But they start out, and we already start putting past history into the conversation, what we know from other people's conversations, what we've seen on TV. We start building a story about what this person is saying before we've actually heard what they are saying, because we're not swift to hear. We hear the sound, but we're not actually listening. That's why the scripture says to take heed how you hear. Now, we may look at it at another time, but the Bible tells us two things about hearing that I think are really interesting. Number one, take heed, pay attention to, be careful what you hear. And then the other one is be careful how you hear. Pay attention to how you are listening. Now, I mentioned it earlier, but I think it may have gone by a lot of individuals. Listening is a skill. It is not a gift. You will not see anywhere in the scriptures where God gave somebody the gift of listening. Because if it was a gift, I would seek it out and I would try to impart it into every individual I know. Because our world would supernaturally, synergistically be changed almost overnight if we could learn to be better listeners. But because it's a skill and not a gift, anybody can get better at it. Now, I do know there are some people who are really, really good at it. And what is said about those individuals, it's why we think there's something about it that it's not. We say, man, he's a gifted listener. Well, I know what they're saying, but it's not a gift. It is a skill that that individual has honed and is better at than most. Most great listeners are also gifted individuals with patience, and it's not a gift either. You have to work at being patient. But because they're patient, because they're willing to slow down, they're better listeners than others. So listening is a skill. Now I'm running out of time, so I'm obviously going to have to pick this up again next time. But let me leave you with this thought, and we may pick up here next Monday. Listening is how you help people. Listening, being a great listener, is actually the first step to truly being able to help another individual. So I love you all so much. Our time is up. Thank you for listening. If this is something you think would help somebody you're connected to, would you give me a thumbs up? Would you click share? look, I'm so grateful for it, so thankful for it. For everyone who gave last year, thank you so much. I'm not a 501c3, but if you give, it's like paying for your meal, just like if you went to a restaurant. So if you got fed today, consider being a monthly giver. Consider just giving a one-time gift. Consider paying for your breakfast. I love y'all so much. Let me say hi to a few folks. Roger, Stuart, Jacqueline, bless y'all. Thank you for watching. Rick, my friend Rick Eggenberg, you're a good friend. David, Jimmy, Connie, Jim Garner, thank you. Gary, thank you. Mary Lou Flowers, bless you all so much. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you next week.